Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel Hammy Reacts, and today I'll be talking all about Spider-Man No Way Home. So this is my review and spoiler discussion for that film. So if you haven't seen the film yet, what are you doing? Go out and see it if you're a Spider-Man fan. Obviously if you don't care, then still go and see it. But yeah, if you haven't seen the film, watch it as soon as you can, because even by now you'll get leaks everywhere of spoilers and stuff. So watch it sooner rather than later, I think. So yeah, this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. I'm just going to give my thoughts on the film, talking about what I liked, what I didn't like, because as much as I loved it, it's not a perfect film. Talk about some of the spoilers that we got in there. Maybe break down some of the stuff. Not into like full depth analysis, but talk about what could happen in the future of this franchise. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about, I'm going to get the negatives out of the way so we can then just focus on the positives, because it isn't a perfect film. I did enjoy it very much. I loved it, as you know. If you've seen my first reaction and like straight out of theater quick thoughts, I'll put a link for that in the description of this video in case you haven't seen that. But that one was just me blurting out my first initial reaction to it and basically gushing about the film and how great it was. But with that being said, let's get the negative stuff out of the way. So it picks up from Far From Home, where Mysterio has revealed Peter Parker's identity, and he's framed him for his murder and the attacks in London. So the first scene picks up right from that moment. The Marvel logo comes up, and kind of like what they did in Infinity War, you can hear noise and speech from from Far From Home. So we cut straight to that scene, and we've got that J. Jonah Jameson on the screen saying, "That's right, folks, Peter Parker is Spider-Man." And so we've got the scene, and from there it's go, go, go. And MJ and Spider-Man got to flee, and they flee to Peter's apartment where he lives with Aunt May. So this part, and I would say maybe the first 20 minutes of the film felt quite rushed. What happens is that everyone knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and the Department of Damage Control come to arrest Peter and then interrogate him, interrogate Ned, MJ. I don't think they interrogate Happy, but Aunt May as well. And basically trying to get out all the information from them. So there's all this kind of legal stuff going. They're in legal trouble, and we need a lawyer. And then a couple of scenes later, or like 5 minutes later, we get the lawyer. Who's the lawyer? Matt Murdock. So we get that Daredevil. Confirmation, which again, much like the Andrew and Toby thing, it's been a long time coming, and we've speculated for a long time. And of course, on Wednesday's episode 5 of Hawkeye, we got confirmation of the Kingpin, which then led to people, of course, thinking, well, Charlie Cox is probably going to come back as Daredevil as well. And Kevin Feige went on to confirm that. So we've got Matt Murdock in the scene. They're all sitting around the dining table, or a table, discussing their issue. That was fine as a cameo, but it didn't last very long. Charlie Cox must have had about 30 seconds of screen time, where he said, "Well, Peter, your legal issues are resolved now, and you're absolved of any legal trouble, but you still need to be careful." So it's kind of, he gets into all this legal trouble and he gets a lawyer, and then it's resolved. So I thought that was a bit rushed. The Daredevil cameo itself, I didn't love. I thought if you're going to have him in, get him to maybe do something a bit more. I personally would have liked to, and obviously there's not a lot of room to do this in the film. The film's quite long. I think it's over 2.5 hours as it is. Doesn't feel like it. The pacing is very, very quick. But with the Daredevil side of things, if you've seen the animated show from the 90s, you know that Daredevil puts on the Spider-Man costume and, masquerades as Spider-Man while Peter Parker's still in custody or something like that, to show that, oh no, it can't be Peter Parker because Spider-Man's still swinging about. It would have been interesting to do that. That would be more fan service for myself and a callback to that 90s show. But nonetheless, I thought that cameo and that appearance was a little bit wasted, because he didn't do much. He literally just catches a brick that comes out the window and says, "I'm a really good lawyer," and that's it. You don't hear. There's no reference. There's nothing to that again. So again, this is where the fan service kind of lets the film down a little bit, in my opinion. Now you've got the issue of the revealed identity, and I think you've got the cliffhanger of Far From Home. They reveal the identity and it cuts to black and the film ends. I think I would have liked to see, again, this is all to do with timing and how much screen time they could do. It's the nature of such an eventful film, they've got to squeeze in a lot of things. But a slower film with a bit better pacing would have, I think, given us some more beats of what it's like for Peter and the people he loves, his friends and Aunt May, to deal with that. How are they dealing with that? We see that it affects his private life, where he's hounded all the time. It affects him at school a little bit when people are taking pictures. And obviously it affects his future in terms of not getting into MIT. But I would have liked to see that kind of give it a bit more breathing space. Like I said, it was the legal side of stuff anyway. It was resolved quite quickly. And in the same sort of sense, we start to see there's a scene on the bridge, and that's where Doc Ock first comes, and then at the end of that fight, we get Green Goblin throwing his bomb. So you've seen that all in the trailer. So that was fine, and it was great. But what happened next was that we find all the other villains. We've got the Lizard, we've got Sandman, and we've got Electro. Green Goblin is a little bit slippier and harder to track down, but we do get them eventually, and even that was wrapped up quite quickly. And I would have liked to have seen a bit more of a struggle. I mean, he gets the bracelet from Doctor Strange, zap, and puts him in the Sanctorum. I would have liked to have seen that see him struggle a bit to get these villains under control. But I see that it was kind of essential to further the rest of the plot, to find out that actually the box that if Doctor Strange presses it, does a spell, it's going to send them back to their world where they're about to be killed by Spider-Man. But that was pretty much it for the negatives. Apart from that, a couple other things like the comedy sometimes didn't work for me as much as I would like to. There were some really hilarious parts, which I'll go on to later on in the review. And there were some great parts where I just really enjoyed the comedy. But at times, it's kind of a Marvel thing now. There's a bit of tension or emotion building up. Cut it with some comedy. So they can let it sort of simmer a bit and, really build it up. That would be great. So, but that brings us nicely on to the stuff that I want to talk about that I really loved about the film. I'll start with what stood out to me the most. Yes, the fan service was great. Yes, it was great to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire come back. Yes, it was great to see them all fight. That stuff was fine. But in terms of actual, just on a movie sense, what I really loved was Tom Holland's journey in this movie. And when you watch this movie, the rest of his journey from Homecoming up until now makes a bit more sense. So just to break it down and kind of summarize and recap it almost, and just give an overarch of his journey. We've got a Spider-Man, Homecoming Spider-Man, who's fought the Avengers. He's really kind of, I want to go on my next mission. He's rearing to go, and Tony Stark needs to kind of just like put him in his place. Look, just handle the neighborhood stuff, but obviously stuff with Vulture happens. So he's quite juvenile and stuff, and then he messes up, and he needs help from Iron Man. And then towards the end of the film, obviously, he's being recruited into the Avengers. He's about to be announced. And he does the kind of grown-up thing and says, nope, I'm fine. I'm not interested at the moment. Cool. So we've got that. That's a nice little bit of kind of development there. Then, of course, after Endgame, we've got Far From Home, where he has to deal with the death of Tony Stark. That memory and that shadow of Tony Stark is always hounding him. He really misses him. And he can obviously really struggles to deal with that. And he just wants a normal life. He wants to just go on holiday with his friends and to tell MJ he loves her or really likes her and just be a normal kid, which is something that's really good in this franchise. They've done that in this trilogy really well. You get so many shots of Spider-Man looking into something that his friends are doing, whether they're at a party or by the pool, and kind of being removed from that and looking from the outside in is always done really well to show that, you know, he can't be normal. He's got this thing that he has to do. And that's the thing that really propels this film. We get the whole adage of with great power comes great responsibility. We've heard it so many times, and we're wondering where's Uncle Ben to sort of deliver this line. And what I really enjoyed about this was that this is actually almost an origin story of Spider-Man in a more traditional sense, in that he deals with a death and he gets the line, with great power comes great responsibility. And we get that sadly from Aunt May. That scene was really heartbreaking and emotional and played excellently by both Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland. And it's really moments like this, the really emotional stuff, that really shows how great of a performance this is from Tom Holland. It's filled with emotion. It's filled with raw anger sometimes. There's sadness. There's, you know, he's as a teenager just doesn't know how to deal with all the stuff that's going on around him. So I thought it was excellent. And what I particularly liked about Tom Holland's journey in this was for me, the Tom Holland in Homecoming to the Tom Holland Spider-Man by the end of Far From No Way Home, it really is going from Spider-Boy, in my eyes, to Spider-Man in a true sense. By the end of the film, he tells Doctor Strange to do a spell so that not only does everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but that Peter Parker is that no one remembers Peter Parker, as if he doesn't exist. And so we go back to seeing that he's essentially on his own. Aunt May's not there. He can't get help from Happy Hogan, because he's forgotten him. No Avengers will know him now. Even Doctor Strange, who's done the spell, won't know him. And of course, Ned and MJ don't know him. So he's really kind of, his sacrifice and his kind of relentlessness to do what is right, do the right thing, no matter what, really shines through and really drives the movie. So by the end, we see that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is a man. He's kind of gotten into college. He's got his apartment. I absolutely love the fact that obviously he can't go to get help from Stark Technologies because Happy doesn't know him. No one knows him. So he's got to go back from the ground and build himself back up. And that means getting his own suit. And I was really glad they did that, because I haven't been a fan of all the technology in the suits and basically being like Iron Man Jr. So yeah, that whole development and that arc was what really stood out to me. And along with that, and along with Tom Holland's Peter Parker journey, we get to see his journey with MJ and Ned. And they work really well together as a team, and they always have done in the movies, but they really are a unit in this one. And it's some of the best moments is that when they're, you know, working together. MJ is just so on it in terms of pragmatic and you know, we're sticking to this, we're going to do this. There's one great line where she's, she learns that Tom Holland's had that spell done to get people to forget that he's Spider-Man, and all hell's broken loose. She's like, you know, next time you want to do something that's going to change the universe, just let us know so we can figure it out and do it together, which I really loved. I really loved Zendaya in the role as well. she's gone from this like cool, distant person in Homecoming to being someone who's a bit awkward and kind of has feelings for Peter Parker in Far From Home, to actually, we're a unit, we're sticking together, let's do this. So I really enjoyed that. Ned had some of the greatest moments in this film in terms of comedy. They've left little teases in, because they've left some stuff open for him there. I did think, and I did kind of, one of my speculations at the start of the film was that they might throw us a curveball and get Ned from another universe to come in as Hobgoblin. Ned Leeds is, there's a run of Ned Leeds being the Hobgoblin in Spider-Man as well. So I thought they might do that. I thought that might have been one of the big surprises that they haven't shown yet. But they didn't do that route. They've shown him to have some inclination towards magical powers, using Doctor Strange's sling ring to open portals. So yeah, that was all great. The emotional performances in this were great from all the cast, especially Tom Holland. But it was great to see Andrew Garfield getting emotional as well. His Peter Parker was quite emotional and emotionally driven as well, more so than I would say more so than Tobey Maguire's. And so it was great to see that emotional performance come through. There's a moment where they're all on the rooftop and Aunt May has just died. Andrew Garfield and Tobey. I keep wanting to say Andrew Maguire. That's probably someone else. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are telling Tom Holland's Peter Parker that, we know what you're going through, because we've had Uncle Ben's who died and then told us with great power comes great responsibility, and then died in our arms. So, we know how it feels. And just to see the emotion in Andrew Garfield's face, the way he played that, like, it's still biting, it's still killing him, and he still deals with it every single day, is the feeling that I got. And that is again reiterated when he saves MJ. So that clip that you see in the trailer where MJ's falling and Tom Holland's Spider-Man tries to grab her, you're right. All the speculation was right. It's going to be Andrew Garfield who swoops in, saves her, and redeems himself for not saving Gwen. And that was brilliant. It was just a look, and he's really holding it back when he's got MJ in his arms. She's saying, "Are you okay?" Because he said, "Oh, are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, are you okay?" I thought it was great. He's just like this, and you can see it's all coming back to him. So Andrew Garfield played that brilliantly. I really loved seeing Tom Holland's Peter Parker go through the different emotional stages, from that kind of, no, that stubborn, we've got to do what's right, I've got to do what's right, and taking that responsibility on, to then going, actually, you know what, this has cost me too much in terms of me losing Aunt May. So he actually says in the film to the other two Peters, this is your problem, I'm going to send these villains back to you. If you deal with them, I don't care anymore. To then, at the end of the battle, he's filled with rage. He wants to kill Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Sorry, to backtrack. It's Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. His glider swoops in and kills Aunt May. And he's like, I just want to tear the guy apart. I want to kill him myself. And we get a really brutal scene where he's just pounding on Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. And Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is, I'm going to go into it a bit later as well, but he is better in this movie than he was in the first movie, if you find that, if you can believe that. His performance just got better. But I will go into that later. So he's just pounding away at him, beating him up, and then he grabs the glider and he's about to stab him with his own glider. And we've got Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man stopping it and saying, "No, you don't want to do this. Trust me." And then but the rage in Tom Holland's performance was great to sort of behold. Let's talk about the surprises now. Obviously, the biggest surprise was Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire coming back. Now, we say that, but I know that all of us were suspecting that. We all had that. It was rumoured enough, despite Andrew Garfield denying it, Tobey Maguire, and everyone denying it. We all kind of knew it. But having that being said, I still had a doubt in my mind. I was like, I'm 99.9% sure they're going to do it. but there's that 1% saying maybe they don't. Maybe they've got something else bigger planned. And I have to tell you, that's my favorite scene particularly when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man comes through. So they're in Ned's house, and they're trying to call back Peter Parker, but they get other Peter Parkers, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, coming through instead. And that whole scene in that house is brilliant. And my favorite sort of comedic moment is in that scene as well, where they're trying to get Andrew Garfield Spider-Man to prove that he is Peter Parker. So he's hanging on from the wall from one arm, and his mum, or I think it's Ned's nan, says in another language to Ned. I'm sorry, I don't know the language, but says in another language to Ned, get him to clear the cobwebs. So he crawls along the wall and he clears the cobwebs, and so that was really, I just loved that part, and it made me laugh out even louder the second time watching it. So the surprises are great, and they just blow you away. They really do. So going on to the next part that I've got here, I want to just touch on once again Green Goblin performance by Willem Dafoe. It is so, he's even creepier. Like, he was creepy as hell in the first film. He's even creepier. He's taunting. He's really, really pushing Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You know, it reminded me of the way that Emperor Palpatine really wants Luke or Vader to lean into the feelings and use their hate. That last scene, they really dig into it. It really pulls it out. And the smiles that he does, the creepy smile, just thinking about it makes me go, oh no. So the Goblin performance was even better. The rest of the villains were fine. They were great. I did like seeing that Dr. Octopus kind of becomes good and kind of works with the Spider-Men. And the other villains were fine. They did have a bit more backstory to them, a bit more story, and kind of grounded them a bit more. It was good to see Jamie Foxx back as Electro with his new design. So yeah, by and large, like, the villains were fine. They didn't really blow me away, apart from the Green Goblin performance. And then just a couple other things in terms of what I loved, and then I'll just kind of go into a bit of more gushing about the spoilery stuff and what I really enjoyed to close off the review. I like the way, and I've touched on this before, I really like the way that they have left the franchise open, because Spider-Man's, you know, at the end of the film, he's got his own apartment, he's got a police tracker, police radio station thing on his phone, he's made his new suit, and every Spider-Man film, it's not a Spider-Man film unless Spider-Man is swinging through New York by the end of the movie and then diving in towards the camera, and we got exactly that. I love the new suit. I can't wait to see it properly, and hopefully they do make more of these films where he can use it properly. And I love the fact that they left it open for more adventures, whether they're going to cross it over with Venom and Morbius. Obviously, that's what we all suspect. Or whether they're going to bring in Kraven the Hunter, because we're getting a Kraven movie as well. So that's my thoughts on what I loved about the movie. And yeah, overall, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like, it wasn't, obviously, for the reason I said, it wasn't a perfect movie. But what I will say is that the event of this movie was, in my opinion, much bigger and better, personally for me, because I am, Spider-Man's my favorite character, but was for me bigger than Endgame. I'm not saying it's a better movie than Endgame. Actually, yes, I am, because I didn't like Endgame as much as Infinity War, and I'm definitely not as much as this. A lot of the times when I enjoy a movie, a big factor for me is the rewatchability of a movie. It might not be the best shot movie or the best story, but if I enjoy it enough that I can rewatch it, which I do feel with this one and not so much with Endgame, then that plays a big factor into an overall score or whatever I give of the movie. So yeah, the event of this movie was great for me. The speculation, the build up, watching the trailers, watching the reactions to trailers and breakdowns of trailers, then watching the movie itself with friends, and I dressed up as Spider-Man, as you guys saw. And then doing the videos like this and watching all the breakdown videos afterwards and pitch meetings and honest trailers. It's all part of the fun. And I've enjoyed that more, I think, the most in this movie than I have for any other movie in quite a long time. Let's talk about some more spoilers, or some of more of the scenes that I loved. A couple of scenes that really stood out to me. The first one would be they've tried to work together to fight off the different villains. It's not working. So they all sort of reconvene on the scaffolding and say, we don't know how to work as a team. And then Tom Holland's fine. Well, I have worked in a team. I was with you in the Avengers. And I'm like, that's great, but who's that? So that was good. That was a good moment. But from that moment, they coordinate their attack. There's I'm Peter 1, you're Peter 2, you're Peter 3. And they coordinate the attack and they split up. And this scene was just, I just love seeing it. I just love it. So they all jump out, they all swing through the scenery, and then there's a bit where they arc up in their swing into the moon and then land. Absolutely love that scene. I watched it obviously the first time in the cinema, loved it then. But then because there are leaks on YouTube, I watched it the next day, a leak. This is really sad, but it brought me, like, just right there, I had a little bit of a tear in my eye from joy because it was that good and I really enjoyed it that much. So that to me is the highlight of the scene. For me, that is the Avengers 1 equivalent of the panning shot, the one that just gets you every time. So yeah, that was the highlight of the movie for me. What other ones? I mentioned the Ned in Ned's house. That scene was great for me as well. Also, really loved when they work together. The three Peters work together in the lab to make cures for each villain, and just seeing the smarts of each Peter. And they really leaned into how smart Tom Holland is as well. As they're all three of them are science whizzes. But they really leaned into that kind of in the middle of the film, just before all hell breaks loose with Goblin. He's cured Doc Ock and he's really working. It was actually quite cool to see Norman Osborn and Peter working together for a brief moment. That was quite cool as well. What else did I love? It was really sad to see when towards the end of the film he has to MJ and Ned have forgotten him now, but he visits the cafe that she works at. And Ned's there, and just kind of he's written in a piece of paper. These are my notes. He's written on a piece of paper what he's going to say to MJ to explain what's happened. He's going to reintroduce him as Peter Parker, and he sees there's a cut there, and the cut, she gets cut during the film, and it's plastered up, and he sees that actually by knowing him, she got hurt, although she says it doesn't hurt him when it was just a scratch or a cut. He folds it up and puts it away, and that was really sad for me. I thought that was really well done. And I think what they'll do is, if they continue the series with Tom Holland, I don't think we'll see MJ, and I don't think we'll see Ned. I think they'll move this forward, and we maybe see Gwen Stacy again, or Felicia Hardy. I think in terms of love interest and stuff, they may move that forward. It would be very easy to write them out, write those two characters out, Ned and MJ, to move it forward. There was just so much to love about this film. Loved, obviously, we had the scene where they talk about their web shooters, and Tobey Maguire's like, he just, he webs something. You guys can't do that, can you? And he's like, no. So that was quite funny. And I suppose one last thing I'll say about what I loved is I really loved the violence and the fighting in this, particularly when Goblin's kind of gone back to his Goblin form. It's no longer Norman Osborn. The Goblin's resurfaced, and the way he's pounding on Spider-Man, picking him up, smashing him through the floor, several floors. I was just like, oh, that's so brutal. So that's probably my last point. That's my review of Spider-Man No Way Home. I've gone for almost half an hour there, just gushing about this film. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Have you seen the film already? If you like the film, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you hated it. I'd also want to hear about that as well. And I'd love to hear why you hated it. And I can probably see why you hated it. I know this movie won't be for everyone. But from what I'm hearing, most people have enjoyed it. And yeah, that's about it for my review. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. I also do other reactions to music videos, some food as well if I'm trying something for the first time. All that stuff can be found right here on Hammy Reacts. Well, guys, thanks for joining me, and until next time, see ya.